Fresh out of university with a business degree and the weight of expectations on her shoulders, Lena Carlisle found herself back in the place she had once vowed never to return, her childhood home. Hey lovelies! Before we dive into today's powerful story, can you take just a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a moment that could change your perspective. Share it with someone who needs a little hope today. And now let's get back into the story. She was 23, ambitious, and determined not to let temporary setbacks feel like defeat. Moving back in with her parents hadn't been part of the plan. Not even close. But after graduation, the job market had been merciless, and her savings evaporated fast. To her surprise, she landed a job just a week later. An entry-level position at Easton & Gray Marketing, decent salary, performance bonuses promised. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a foothold. That evening, over her mother's signature rosemary chicken, Lena announced her good news. Her plan was simple. Stay 3 months, save some cash, then get her own apartment in the city. But as soon as the words "move out" passed her lips, the mood shifted. Forks paused midair. Her mother's eyes darted to her stepfather. They exchanged that look, the silent one that always meant trouble was coming. "You know I can only work part-time since the accident," her mother said quietly. Her stepfather sighed. "My hours at the factory are being cut again." And just like that, her plan started to unravel. Lena stared down at her half-eaten dinner, the scent of rosemary and thyme turning her stomach. Her mother's voice had taken on that soft, almost apologetic tone, the one that made saying no feel like betrayal. "We could really use your help, sweetheart," her mother added, laying her fork down with deliberate care. "You wouldn't need to pay rent. It just makes more sense, doesn't it?" Lena didn't answer right away. Her stepfather, Tom, cleared his throat and nodded solemnly, like it was already settled. The unspoken truth pressed in from all sides. If she left, they'd struggle. She was family. Family helps. So she stayed. The weeks slipped into a pattern. Work, commute, pay the bills, eat dinner, repeat. Her mother always had something warm on the table, and Tom managed small repairs around the house like it meant something. It was fine. Not ideal, but manageable. Until last Saturday. That was when Chloe, Lena's older sister, showed up like a storm in pearls, towing her husband Andrew and their 2 kids in tow. Laughter, hugs, squeals. Suddenly, the house was no longer Lena's quiet shelter. It became a stage, and Chloe was the star. Lena stood in the hallway, clutching her empty coffee mug like a shield as the living room erupted into applause-level adoration. Her mother was on the floor, arms wide, catching little Ellie, age 4, in a tight embrace. Tom lifted Max, age 2, high above his head like the boy was a prizefighter returning home. Chloe, of course, smiled like she'd choreographed the whole reunion. "Oh, my precious babies," their mother gushed, wiping imaginary tears from her cheeks. "Chloe, you look radiant. Just radiant. How's the new house? Are the lilacs blooming yet? And that book club, are you still hosting?" Lena didn't speak. She didn't need to. She wasn't expected to. She leaned against the doorframe, invisible, her presence acknowledged only when her mother called over her shoulder without looking. "Lena, be a dear and put on a fresh pot of coffee, would you?" She turned to the kitchen without a word, the familiar ache of being background noise tightening across her chest. Behind her, laughter rang out. Stories about Max's new favorite word, Ellie's tantrum over green beans, Chloe's struggles finding the right throw pillows. Every trivial detail was gold. Meanwhile, Lena's full-time job, her sacrifices, her quiet contributions. The scent of coffee filled the kitchen, but Lena barely noticed. She stood at the counter, gripping the edge with both hands, her knuckles pale. From the living room, the laughter swelled again. Catherine's voice, sing-song and smug, recounting Max's new obsession with dinosaurs like it was breaking news. Lena could hear the clink of teacups, the scrape of chairs. No one asked how work was going. No one asked if she was happy. She was tired. It had always been like this. She remembered sitting at the same kitchen table when she was 11, holding up her report card with every box stamped A. She'd practiced how she'd present it, hoping for a smile, a hug, anything. Instead, her mother skimmed the paper with a distracted glance and murmured, "That's nice, sweetheart," before turning back to Chloe, who was deep in conversation about college applications. That day burned into her like a brand. Chloe, 17 and glowing with ambition, talking about university tours and scholarship letters. Lena had quietly folded her report card and slipped it back into her backpack. It was the first time she realized applause wasn't given for effort in this house. It was reserved for Chloe. That dinner years ago had felt like a funeral for Lena's place in the family. She could still hear her mother's voice, eyes misty with pride. "We're so proud of you, Chloe. We'll figure out the money. You deserve the best." Tom had nodded, solemn and unwavering. "We'll take out a loan if we have to." And they did. A week after Chloe left for college, Lena, just 11, was summoned to the dining table. No excitement. No pride. Just logistics. "We're going to need to tighten things up," Tom had said, tapping a list of new expenses. "Catherine's tuition isn't cheap." That year Lena watched her world shrink. No new clothes. No field trips. Her birthday gifts became necessities. Socks, binders, a refurbished calculator. But the checks to Chloe never stopped. "She needs to focus on her studies," her mother would say, scribbling zeros on envelopes, "not worry about money." So Lena learned quickly. If she wanted a future, she'd have to build it herself. By 15 she joined every club, every competition. She studied late into the night, hunting scholarships like prey. Because there wouldn't be loans for her. Just leftovers. Lena's determination became her armor. While her classmates boasted about new phones or weekend trips, she quietly stitched together a future from scraps, tutoring after school, babysitting for neighbors, applying to every scholarship she could find. She wrote essays until her fingers ached. She practiced interviews in the mirror, eyes hard, smile polite. It wasn't about recognition anymore. It was survival. And it worked. She earned a full scholarship to Summit State University. Tuition, housing, even a meal plan. She remembered how her mother had sighed with relief when she shared the news. "That's wonderful," she'd said. "One less thing to worry about." No hug. No tears. Just relief that Lena wouldn't be a burden. Meanwhile, Chloe graduated and landed a comfortable job in Marigold, a leafy suburb with boutique bakeries and yoga studios. She married Andrew, her college sweetheart, within a year. 2 years later, Ellie arrived. Then Max. Lena would come home during breaks to find her parents buzzing over baby pictures or updates about Chloe's latest home renovations. "Did you see the backsplash in her kitchen?" her mother would gush. "She has such taste." Lena would nod. She always nodded. She had mastered the art of being proud without being seen. After Chloe's wedding, the rhythm of Lena's visits changed. Every few weeks, Chloe and Andrew would arrive with their picture-perfect children and a flurry of demands. Lena barely had time to greet them before Chloe was off making plans. "Lena, you'll watch Ellie and Max, right?" Chloe would say in that breezy tone that made refusal sound petty. "Andrew and I haven't had a real date night in forever." The first few times, Lena tried to push back gently. "Maybe Mom and Tom could take them for a bit?" Her mother would clutch her lower back with a wince. "Oh honey, you know my sciatica's been acting up. I can't chase little ones around." Tom would chime in with a tired shrug. "Weekends are my only chance to rest." So Lena sat through Frozen for the 10th time, chased Max when he tried to climb the bookshelves, and stopped Ellie from pouring glitter into the fish tank. Every time she felt herself getting angry, she reminded herself it was just one weekend a month. Just one weekend. But over time, it began to feel like every sacrifice she made was invisible, absorbed into the background noise of everyone else's busy, beautiful lives. A year passed like that, one weekend at a time. Lena worked long hours, covered the bills at home, and played the role of dependable aunt every month. She kept telling herself it was temporary, that her life would begin soon, that she just needed to be patient. Then the phone call came. She was doing dishes when her mother's cell rang on the counter. From the tone of her mother's voice, Lena could tell it was Chloe before she even heard her name. "Oh sweetheart, don't cry. Tell me what happened." Through the thin walls, Lena heard the panic in Chloe's voice. Something about Andrew's company collapsing overnight, the rent being overdue, their savings gone. A desperate plea followed. "Could we maybe stay with you guys for a little while?" Her mother didn't hesitate. "Of course you can. We'll make room." Lena froze. The plate in her hand slipped beneath the suds. She stepped into the doorway, voice steady. "If they're moving in, maybe this is a good time for me to finally get my own place." For heads turned to her like she'd spoken blasphemy. Don't be ridiculous, her mother snapped. There's plenty of room. We're family. We stick together. And just like that, the decision was made without her. They arrived that Saturday morning, 3 cars packed to the brim as if they were moving in forever instead of just for a little while. Chloe bounced up the front steps, talking a mile a minute, while Andrew hoisted boxes marked kids' stuff and toys, fragile. Lena spent the morning moving her belongings into what had once been the storage room, a cramped space that smelled faintly of mothballs and old paint. It barely fit a twin mattress and her desk, let alone her dreams. Her old bedroom, sunlit and spacious, was handed over to Ellie and Max. They need room to play, her mother had said, as if it was obvious. As if Lena had no needs at all. The first night the house erupted with noise. Max sprinted up and down the hallway, screaming like it was a racetrack. Ellie shrieked with laughter. Chloe blasted music in the living room and shouted over FaceTime calls, telling friends how rough this whole transition thing was. When Max barged into Lena's room for the 3rd time, scattering her paperwork onto the floor, she raised her voice. "Max, please. Out." "They're just playing," Chloe called from the hallway, not even looking up. "Don't be such a grouch, Lena." Lena had never thought silence was something you could grieve. But in those first weeks after Chloe's family moved in, she missed it like a limb. Her tiny new room offered no escape. Paper-thin walls let in every sound. Baby Shark on loop, the crash of toys being flung across the hallway, Chloe's constant chatter about how hard her life had become. Lena came home from work exhausted, craving a quiet dinner, a hot shower, a chapter of a book. Instead she got chaos. Chloe monopolized the living room, draped across the couch with the TV blaring, scrolling endlessly on her phone. Andrew was usually parked at the kitchen table, clicking through job boards but mostly scrolling news feeds. When asked, he'd sigh and say, "The market's brutal right now. I'm trying." The kids ran wild. No boundaries. No bedtime. Lena had nowhere to go, nowhere to be still. At night, she'd lie awake in her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling while the house pulsed with life she didn't choose. Her breath came shallow. Her body tense. She'd tell herself it was only temporary. But with each day that word, temporary, began to feel like a lie someone else had written for her life. The first utility bill after Chloe's family moved in felt like a slap. Lena stood in the kitchen, eyes fixed on the numbers. Water. Electricity. Heat. All of it had nearly doubled. Her salary, once enough to cover household expenses with some left over for savings, now vanished faster than she could track. Her hands trembled as she opened her banking app. The math didn't lie. If things stayed this way, she'd never be able to afford her own place. She wasn't moving forward. She was sinking. That night at dinner she found her courage. Just a little of it. "So, about the bills," she said softly, pushing peas around her plate. "They've gone up a lot since everyone moved in. I can't keep covering everything on my own." There was a sharp clatter. Chloe's fork hit her plate. "Are you seriously complaining about money right now?" she snapped. "Andrew and I have lost everything and you want to talk about your bills?" Lena tried to keep her voice level. "I'm not complaining. I just think we need to figure out something fair." "You're being selfish," Chloe hissed. "She's right," her mother added, shaking her head. "This isn't the time to count pennies, Lena. We need to support each other." Lena said nothing else that night. She sat in silence, chewing food she couldn't taste, while the words selfish, ungrateful, money-obsessed echoed around the table like accusations from a jury that had already decided her guilt. "Fine," she had said eventually, swallowing her frustration like a bitter pill. "Never mind." A week later, Andrew finally landed a job at a local insurance office. Lower pay, longer commute, but at least it was something. Lena had hoped this might shift the weight a little. Maybe things would improve. But instead of lightening, the burden morphed. "It's just so hard being alone with the kids all day," Chloe began complaining almost immediately. "Andrew's gone 10 hours a day. I never get a break." The request started small. "Can you watch them while I run to the store? Just keep an eye on them while I shower?" Then came the nights when Lena would walk through the door after a long day at work and find Chloe standing in the foyer, makeup done, purse in hand. "Oh good, you're home. Andrew and I are going to dinner. Ellie's eaten already, but Max will need something soon. We'll be back by 10. No ask. No please. Just expectation." Lena's weekends became a private kind of hell. Every Friday night brought a new announcement. brunch plans, shopping trips, movie dates. Chloe and Andrew would beam with anticipation while Max and Ellie clung to Lena's legs, already claiming her time before she'd even taken off her shoes. Her parents had a habit of conveniently disappearing those weekends, suddenly making plans to visit relatives, always just out of reach when help was needed. "We'll only be gone a few hours," they'd say, already halfway out the door. "You've got it, right?" So she did it. Again and again. She wiped sticky hands and made macaroni shaped like cartoon characters. She mediated tantrums and cleaned up crayon murals from her bedroom walls. She watched the same animated films on loop until the soundtracks haunted her dreams. By Sunday night, the house would be a war zone of toys and laundry, her body aching from chasing toddlers and her mind frayed from the noise. Then she'd be expected to cook dinner for everyone. And no one said thank you. She started waking up on Saturdays with a pit in her stomach. It wasn't just exhaustion. It was grief for the life she was supposed to be living. It took another draining weekend, 3 tantrums, 2 diaper disasters and 1 shattered wine glass, for Lena to finally speak up. Dinner was leftover casserole. The kids were in bed. Chloe was scrolling her phone at the table, Andrew half asleep in his chair, her parents immersed in Chloe's story about a traumatizing grocery store experience. Lena set down her fork. "I need to talk to you all," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the chatter like a knife. For heads turned. "I'm really tired," she continued. "This arrangement with the kids, it's not working for me." Chloe's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean it's not working? Are you saying you don't want to spend time with your niece and nephew?" Lena's mother jumped in before she could reply. "Don't be silly, Chloe. This is good practice for Lena. She'll need to know how to take care of children someday. Think of it as training." Just like that, the moment passed. Her concerns evaporated, swept under the rug by a wave of patronizing smiles and redirected conversation. Lena sat there invisible again. No one heard her. Or maybe worse, they did and simply chose not to care. After that night, something in Lena shifted. She stopped hoping things would get better. Instead, she watched as Chloe and Andrew began testing just how far they could push her. They no longer waited until she got home to make plans. They had their coats on and car keys in hand the moment she stepped through the door. "We're trying that new fusion place downtown," Chloe would say, breezing past Lena as if she were the nanny. "Ellie had a snack and Max just needs a bath before bed." "You're amazing, thanks." No question. No apology. Just expectation dressed as routine. The weekends became heavier. Lena stopped looking forward to Friday nights. She stopped making plans, even small ones. There was no point. And her parents? Gone more than ever. They'd mastered the art of being conveniently unavailable. Visiting cousins. Grocery runs that lasted all day. Church events they'd never mentioned before. Lena was left alone, cleaning applesauce off the walls, answering endless why questions, breaking up fights over stuffed animals, while the rest of the family lived their lives. She didn't know what broke her exactly. Maybe it wasn't one thing. Maybe it was the slow erosion of being needed, but never valued. It was a Wednesday morning when the universe tossed her a lifeline. Lena sat at her desk at Pinnacle Marketing, blinking at a report she'd already reread 3 times. She hadn't slept well in weeks. Coffee no longer helped. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like a second headache. That's when Vivian, her closest friend at work, appeared at her cubicle. "Hey," she said, dropping into the guest chair with a grin. "You free this weekend?" Lena gave a tired smile. Define free. "A bunch of us are heading to Pine Hollow. Skiing, hot cocoa fireplaces, the works. We leave Saturday morning, back Sunday night. You should come." Lena blinked. Something in her chest stirred. Freedom. A weekend not filled with sticky fingers and tantrums. Just snow and silence. By Friday evening she was folding sweaters in her room, her tiny, dim storage room turned bedroom, and for the first time in months she felt something close to joy. Then Chloe appeared in the doorway. "What's with the bag?" she asked, eyeing Lena's half-packed duffel. Lena smiled. "Ski trip. Pine Hollow. Just for the weekend." Chloe's face hardened instantly. "You need to cancel," she said coldly. "Andrew and I have plans." Lena looked up, heartbeat steady. "No, I don't." Chloe's arms crossed tightly over her chest. "You have to cancel. Andrew and I are going to Aunt Lydia's birthday in Millbridge. It's out of town. We need you here with the kids." Lena folded her thermal socks slowly, deliberately. You never told me about this party. It didn't need a discussion, Chloe snapped. Mom and Tom are going too. Obviously you're staying with Ellie and Max. Lena let out a short, stunned laugh. Wait, you made plans that affect me and didn't even think to ask me first? You're being selfish, Chloe said, face reddening. This is family. We made a plan that works for everyone. No, you made a plan that works for you, Lena said, standing up now, her voice steady with the kind of calm that scared people. You decided what I'd be doing with my weekend without asking. Again. From the hallway came a voice, Mom, sharp and already on edge. What's going on? She's abandoning us, Chloe shouted. She's going skiing instead of helping. Mom appeared in the doorway, followed closely by Tom and Andrew. The room, already small, felt like it was shrinking by the second. Lena zipped her bag, eyes blazing. For once, she said, I'm choosing me. The cavalry had arrived. Mom stood with her hands on her hips, lips pressed into a tight line of disapproval. Tom hovered near the doorframe, arms crossed. Andrew looked confused, as if he'd walked into a play midway through and couldn't find his script. What's this about skiing? Mom demanded. Lena didn't flinch. Exactly what it sounds like. I'm going to Pine Hollow with friends for the weekend. I'm not available for babysitting. You can't just run off when we have plans, Chloe barked. Aunt Lydia's expecting us. No, Lena said firmly, turning to face them all. You have plans. I wasn't included. No one asked me. You just assumed like always. Chloe's voice rose. We discussed it. It was the most logical arrangement. We. Lena repeated. So everyone here talked about how I'd spend my weekend except me. Convenient. Chloe's face flushed. Well, Aunt Lydia said no kids. Obviously someone had to stay with them. Lena slung her duffel over her shoulder. Then maybe that someone should be their parents. Andrew finally spoke, his voice low. And what are we supposed to do? Hire a sitter with what money? Lena looked him dead in the eye. Not my problem. Excuse me. Chloe gasped, her voice rising into that shrill pitch Lena had come to loathe. You heard me, Lena said, squaring her shoulders. They're your children, Chloe. Yours and Andrew's. Not mine. If you can't bring them to your precious party, then you either don't go or you find a babysitter. But I am done being the fallback plan. You're unbelievable, Chloe hissed, her hands clenched at her sides. You're abandoning your family. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me? Lena shot back. Let me stay in the smallest room in the house. Expect me to fund your lifestyle and raise your kids while you complain about how hard your life is. Mom stepped in, her voice sharp. How dare you speak to your sister like that? We've all made sacrifices, Lena. You're being incredibly irresponsible. Selfish, Tom added quietly, shaking his head in that slow, disappointed way that used to make Lena feel small. But not anymore. You know what's selfish? Lena said, her voice rising. Expecting someone to set fire to their own life to keep everyone else warm. Silence fell. And this time, Lena didn't fill it. Catherine's face crumpled into performative tears, the kind that always came when the spotlight shifted away from her. I can't believe this, she sobbed, hands over her face. You're tearing this family apart. Andrew muttered something under his breath. Lena caught the word ungrateful, while Tom just stared at the floor as if hoping it would swallow him whole. Then their mother delivered the final blow. If you walk out that door tomorrow, Lena, she said coldly, don't bother coming back. Lena stared at her. The ultimatum rang out in the room like a slammed door. And then to everyone's shock, she laughed. Not a bitter chuckle. Not a nervous titter. A real, cathartic laugh that shook her shoulders and brought actual tears to her eyes. You have no idea how long I've waited to hear that, she said, wiping her face. I've been too afraid to leave. Afraid I'd feel guilty or that I was the bad daughter. But this is a gift. Get out. Chloe shrieked, the tears gone, replaced with rage. Just go. Gladly, Lena said, already pulling out her phone. Hey Viv, she said as the call connected loud and clear on speaker. Is that offer to crash at your place still open? Vivian's voice came through the speaker, warm and unbothered. Absolutely. Got a spare room with your name on it. You need a ride or are you driving? I'm on my way in 20, Lena said, shooting a glance at the stunned faces still crowded in her doorway. Thanks, Viv. She ended the call and turned to the small pile of things she had already packed, thankfully more than she realized. Essentials, clothes, documents, the things you grab when your heart knows long before your mind that it's time to leave. No one moved to stop her. They just watched, silent now, as she made trip after trip down the stairs, loading her car like a woman finally claiming her life. Boxes. Bags. Her old laptop. Her framed degree that had never made it onto a wall in this house. Finally, the last load in her arms, she stepped into the living room where they all waited. Her mother with tight lips, Tom with arms crossed, Chloe with venom in her eyes, Andrew pretending to scroll his phone. One more thing, Lena said, pausing at the door. Since I'm no longer living here, I won't be paying the bills either. Her mother paled. But wait, the groceries, the utilities. Lena didn't flinch. Not my problem anymore. Lena didn't look back as her mother's voice chased her down the driveway, first pleading, then demanding, and finally falling into silence. She slid into the driver's seat, turned the key, and pulled away from the only home she'd ever known. And for the first time in years she could breathe. The roads blurred under her headlights. Her phone lit up again and again. Calls from Mom, texts from Chloe, a guilt-laced message from Tom that read, "You'll regret this someday." He ignored them all. By the time she reached Vivian's apartment, the adrenaline was fading, replaced by something quieter. Peace. Vivian greeted her with a blanket, a mug of peppermint tea, and a warmth Lena hadn't realized she'd been starved of. "No questions tonight," Vivian said softly. "You're safe now. Just sleep." Lena curled up on the couch, the tea cradled in her hands. The silence of the apartment wrapped around her like armor. No stomping feet. No blaring cartoons. No passive-aggressive sighs from the hallway. Just stillness. The next morning she woke early, refreshed, alert, alive. Over breakfast, Vivian handed her a steaming mug and said, "So, you ready to look for your own place?" Lena smiled. "For the first time in my life, I really am." By Wednesday, Lena had signed the lease on a small, sunlit one-bedroom apartment on the east side of town, just 15 minutes from work, with hardwood floors and windows that let in the morning light. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She moved in with only what she could carry in 2 trips: clothes, books, a kettle, her laptop. Vivian helped her pick out a second-hand couch, and they spent that first night eating takeout on the floor, laughing like teenagers at a sleepover. There was no furniture in the bedroom yet, just a mattress and a pile of pillows. But the emptiness didn't feel hollow. It felt like potential. Each morning she woke to silence. Blessed, golden silence. She could make coffee and drink it while it was still hot. She could leave a book open on the table and come back to find it untouched. There were no messes she didn't make. No footsteps overhead. No demands. Her family still called. Still texted. Chloe sent pictures of the kids. Mom sent guilt-tripping essays. Tom sent silence. The messages piled up like junk mail. Lena read them all. And responded to none. Her silence became her first real boundary. And it held. A week later her phone rang again. Her mother. Lena stared at the screen. The name blinked at her like an old scar reopening. This time she answered. "Miriam," her mother said sharply, skipping any greeting. "Do you realize what you've done? Your little stunt ruined Aunt Lydia's entire party. Chloe and Andrew couldn't come because you refused to watch the children. It was humiliating." Lena sat on her couch, calm and unmoved. "Stop." The line went quiet. "I'm done, Mom," Lena continued. "I'm done being the one who always bends. The one who gives up her time, her space, her money, for people who treat her like a footnote." Her mother's voice softened into something sickly sweet. "I know things haven't been perfect, honey, but we need you. The bills this month." "No," Lena interrupted, firm now. "I told you, if we ever have a relationship again, it will be one based on respect. Not guilt. Not control. Not using me until there's nothing left." "But we're family," her mother whispered. "Family doesn't mean servitude," Lena said. "It doesn't mean sacrifice without appreciation." And with that she hung up. Then she blocked the number. And all the others that followed. Lena sat on the floor of her apartment, the soft hum of the city drifting in through her open window. Her phone lay beside her, silent now, no buzzing, no blinking, no guilt. She had blocked them all, Chloe, Andrew, Tom, and her mother. Even the family group chat. She stared at the empty screen, expecting a wave of panic, of regret. But all she felt was peace. It was terrifying. And it was liberating. Cutting them off hadn't been about revenge. It was survival. For years she'd been the good daughter, the reliable sister, the one who paid, the one who stayed. But no more. She'd drawn a line, and for the first time in her life she stood behind it. Maybe one day she'd let them back in on her terms. Maybe they'd learn what it meant to love someone without taking everything from them. Maybe they'd change. Or maybe they wouldn't. Either way, Lena wasn't waiting anymore. She stood, crossed to the window, and let the autumn air rush against her skin. Somewhere below, life moved forward. Her life. She didn't know what came next. She didn't need to. All that mattered was this: she was finally free. And this time she wasn't going back.